So I know it's been a number of years, but I've been circling back around, really enjoying Space Marine for Xbox, exploring it from the perspective of the narrative. Now, when this game was released, 7, 8, 9 years ago? I mean, this was the ultimate hotness at the time. This was a title that I was so looking forward to. And at Games Day, where they demoed it, and we had the life-size cosplay Corn Marine and just the narrative, it was like, wait a second, Ultramarines are actually done right? Ultramarines actually look cool, and the first scene is jumping out of a Thunderhawk with a jetpack to take on orcs. Like, I'm sold, and that was even before, not that there's any spoilers now, but that was even before we got into the machinations of the Chaos Lord, who just, that was a sexy Chaos Lord. Chaos Sorcerer. I mean, that was amazing. When he walks through the warp, I was like, whoa, right? Mind-blowing. Plus all the weapons, the narrative, the servo skulls, and the Titan. Just fabulous. So now in revisiting the game and taking it a slower pace, because like any title early on, you get hyped up, you play through it, you want to see the visuals more and more and more. Now, again and again, I'm like, I want to take my time. I want to look at every wall. I want to look at every sign, every cable, every piece of the story. And the three questions that I have: primary question, secondary questions. And I'm going to push this out there to the warp, to you guys, the lore masters, the 40K lore masters, putting my own theory to the test and interested to hear your theories. This idea, Titus, not touched by the warp. Not touched by the warp. Now, we saw this with the Sorcerer Lord. We saw this throughout the game numerous times. And, of course, at the very end, the Inquisition, will discover many secrets, Space Marine. So from that perspective, I believe that Titus had whatever genetic DNA mutation, the pariah gene. Is that still in canon? I know 40K is like getting rewritten every single moment. But we see like the Sisterhood of Silence in the Horus Heresy, the fact that there are humans that do not show up in the warp. And if you don't show up in the warp, you can't be affected by the warp. And they made great assassins that during the Horus Heresy were used against Xenos that utilized warp technology. And of course, later on in the Heresy and in the Inquisition. So I believe that the Inquisition knew exactly what was going on, was curious about what was going on, and Titus, unknown, of course. I don't even know if the Ultramarines, the chapter, the apothecaries and everything else would have essentially known that, because that's classified inquisitorial material. But I believe he had the pariah gene or a mutation of it, and his signature was not showing up in the warp. And this was a real surprise for the Chaos Lord too. I mean, he was keeping his cool, but that was very, very interesting. Now, why was the Inquisition aware of that? Maybe to keep it secret from the forces of chaos? I don't believe that as much, because again, going back to the Horus Heresy, this was known. And of course, the Chaos Marines that went into the Eye of Terror, the Great War, the Long War, all that, this knowledge is there. Certainly with sorcerers, this knowledge is there. But perhaps exploring it from the perspective of being able to analyze that mutation or that genetic material, the Inquisition having amazing interest in it. So that's the primary question. Why was Titus not affected by the warp? Now, secondary questions that kind of build to this, the curiosity that builds to this, sub-questions. The orcs were attacking the Forge World. And this idea, I don't know if the orcs knew the Titan was there, but of course that being a capital weapon and being a priceless artifact needed to be held on to at all cost. Did the Chaos Space Marines, did they lead the orcs to there for some reason to create this massive amount of chaos, literally massive amount of chaos? Were somehow they brought there by the machinations? Now, we didn't really see this ahead of time, but machinations of chaos cultists, maneuvering with the Chaos Lord through the warp, maneuvering by Chaos Space Marines, essentially to not so much bring Titus there. I really believe he was an unknown. But to create all this pandemonium, to bring things through to a height, so this way the inquisitorial operatives could think about firing the Titan, destroying the Spire, and utilizing that kind of warp tech that was powered in the Manufactorum, leading to opening the portal of the warp so, chaos could come through. I think it was a big kind of plan behind the scenes, a lot of maneuvering. Second sub-question, then I'm going to turn it over to you guys, because I'm really trying to look and make my way through this again here and really enjoying it now so many years later. I was the guy, if you've played the game back in the day and you don't remember me, I was the guy who would sit with the plasma cannon. And on some of the maps, if you got this right position, you could lob out plasma charges over to the spawn points or the cap points. And I would just overcharge. I had all the plasma gun perks and plasma cannon perks, and just blast. I did play Melta Spam for a little while, but it gets boring really quick, where like you run around the corner and basically hit someone with a Melta gun and instant kill them. I mean, you had to have good timing, but it was kind of like, I like the heavy bolter. I really wanted to like the storm bolter, but storm bolter is like, as soon as you shoot, it just like flies up to the sky, and you couldn't keep that thing on target for anything. I mean, just anything. But usually I was a Devastator. I never really played Assault. But back to just going down that time bridge, but going back to the secondary question to turn over to you guys. The Orcs, if they had gained access to the Titan itself, it would have been, I won't say destroyed, it would have been orcified. I mean, they would have turned it into some sort of giant war machine. Maybe they would have conquered the planet or ruined the planet, but it doesn't seem clear if they would have had the ability to make it off-world. So, of course, yes, the loss of such a priceless and holy artifact in that Titan is unacceptable. But if it was lost for some reason, or if Titus had failed, then from that perspective, would the Orcs have made it off-world with this Titan? Would it have consolidated, the war boss consolidated into a kind of a stronghold and launch other wogs? Would they have scrapped the Titan? The mech boys scrapped the Titans and now just utilized the pieces for something even crazier? I mean, what was the end goal? I don't believe they really knew. Do Orcs even have an end goal? I got to tap into you war bosses and Orc players. I guess it's more just Orc fun. You just keep going till the WOG runs out. And if they had gotten that Titan and utilized it besides the loss, it would have kept the WOG going longer. So your thoughts pulling it in. Here we are all these years later. Do those highlights still hold true? And just why? Just why was Titus not affected by the warp?